Okay, we have done A1 and A2. This is the combination, and now we are going to A3. A3 is that striped circle that goes around it. Is it a challenge? Absolutely not. When you have made A2, this is so easy peasy, and the way we make it, it is the same. The way we assemble the piece, the marks on top of each other, baste them, stitch them together, press them, everything is the same. So we have done this, so that won't be a challenge. We cut the fabrics according to the cutting chart. We need fabric 15 and fabric 16, and we cut 2 strips of 2 1/4 by 42. Again, a fabric size is normally 44, but because it is a batik, I always stay on the safe side by say approximately 42. We need A2 and A3, I'm sorry, we need A3. It's 2 parts, A31 and A32, and you find them on sheet number 1. So what I did, take my booklet away. What I did, that is the piece that we already made. Are you happy with it? I am, but we don't need it at this moment. So I cut my strips in fabric 16 and fabric 15. I cut my pieces and I cut them a smidge from the outside, and again A31 and A32. First I make this one, and then at the end I will make this one, and I will tape her on top of the piece, and then I can continue. The reason that I make 2 pieces is simple. I always find it very hard to start here from the beginning, if this is my number 1 instead of my number 34, to make something so small bigger. I'm running out of fabric all the time, and I decided if I start on the largest part of this circle to make it smaller, that makes a lot of difference. You also can see the little arrows. When we start with number 1 and number 2, you place the fabrics on top of each other, and I will show you what we do. And remember the golden rule: the fabric for the first foundation point is always on top. So if we take a close look, I take part A2 away. The fabric for the first foundation point is fabric 16. So that is our green fabric. She is on top. And what we do here, this is fabric 15 and this is my 16. I want to show you something because I think we can see it. If you look at this, and maybe it is hard to see, and maybe I will find a better spot somewhere else in the quilt. If you look at this, there is a shadow of green. Can you see it here? That means that this is the wrong side for me, the wrong side of the batik. Because if I turn her and focus on that yellow star, that yellow flower, you won't see it here, or not as dominant. So for me, this is the wrong side and that is the right side. So I place them on top of each other. Fabric 15 facing up, fabric 16 face down. Okay, the next step. We place her just on top of the piece. And as you can see on the little arrows, we will start here in the seam allowance. We go all the way down to the end. We do the same with all the other parts, and you alternate the fabrics. Fabric 16, fabric 15, fabric 16, fabric 15. But if I take my other piece, because now we start from the outside to the inside of the circle. But when we have attached that second part of A3 to the piece, and we tape her together, then we start from the inside of the circle to the outside. And again, you start from the largest part and you make her smaller. It's the same here. We start from the largest part and make her smaller. And at the end, we will sew them together in the center of the piece. Okay, shall we start? Okay. I already placed my fabrics on top of each other. Maybe you can focus. You can see we do have a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will start here with my back stitch and I go all the way down and I end up with my back stitch. Oh, I have a larger stitch. Don't forget to bring the stitch down to 1.5. Because now we start paper piecing again. And remember, when we stitch the circles together from A1 and A2, we use a regular stitch. And you end up with the back stitch in your seam allowance. So, that is my first piece. And again, finger press as best as you can. Use your thumbnail, spread the fabrics between your 2 fingers. Okay, now we go on with 2 separate pieces, right side facing up. Focus on the line between number 2 and 3. And if you extend this line here, you can see we do have 1/4 inch. And you can see here as well. So that makes it a fast way. It's not necessary to pin this. This is very basic paper piecing. And again, start with that little tiny back stitch. Okay. You always follow the arrows. It really makes it so much easier. And again, fold it away, and now you trim fabric 15 into the right shape. I eyeball 1/4 inch seam allowance, but again, you can use your at 1/4. Finger press, spread the fabric between your 2 fingers. You can see that the piece is nice and generous. It's not extremely big, but she's big enough for what we are going to do. Right side facing up. And the next step, focus on the line between 3 and 4, and the only thing we do is place her on the right side of the piece, and you can see we extend the fabric line here and here. Always start with a tiny back stitch. You go all the way to the end and you end up with the back stitch. This is how you make your circle. This is how you make A31. Then you tape A32 to A31 on top of that tape line, and you continue. And at the end we will stitch them together and we press the little seam open. And then we are ready to attach our star circle with a spike that goes around it, A1 and A2, into that beautiful circle of A3. And we have finished that first part. And all the techniques that you need for your entire quilt are already there. So if you know how the spikes work, and if you know how this works, and if you know how to pin baste, it really makes a lot of difference already for the way you make your quilt. So, okay, I will be back when I finish my circle and when we attached A1 and A2 in A3. I have finished A3. A31 and A32 make this striped circle, and I can show you how she looks like. Here she is. I used the fabrics 15 and 16. I will trim her now. We will stitch them together, and then we will attach our part A1 and A2 according to the booklet into this circle, and our first part is done. So what I do now, she's been pressed, and I will start cutting the extra fabric from the outside, and as you can see, I will stay exactly on the line. And we will have the perfect seam allowance that we need. When I have cut off both outside extra fabrics, I will bring the marks onto the fabric. Remember that we make that small mark with a regular pen. It's about 1/8 inch at the end of the seam allowance. Then we will take the papers out and we will stitch them together. And the reason that we take the papers out is because, I think I have to finish that. The reason that we take the papers out, we don't want papers in our seams. So we only need the paper to make the piece, not for assembling. It is so hard if you have papers in your seam, because when you attach circles together, you need the bias and flexibility of the piece. Remember that I spoke to you about this with A2? I stay exactly on the line and cut off that excess fabric on the outside. And when I've done that, I bring the marks onto the fabric using my regular pen. And when you have done this several times, to cut off that excess fabric with your rotary cutter. And that's why I say, when you do your back stitch, always stay in your seam allowance. Because when you do your back stitch on the outside of your seam allowance, then you cut off your beginning and endings. And there's always a little bit of extra tension. That's the reason why I start and finish my seams always with a tiny back stitch. That is an important thing. So, okay. What I have here is a straight line, and when I have a straight line, I always cut this with my ruler and my rotary cutter. So, when I come back, the marks are there, the paper is taken out of the piece, and we will start assembling the star and A2 together in this beautiful circle. I would like to show you how she looks like. This is what we have so far. What do you think? Okay, I have finished A3. I have finished that striped circle, and as you can see, we have sewed them together in the center. And the first pin, what I did, my basting pin, was the mark and the center spike on top of each other. And then I do the other one and the other one. This is in fact the same process what we have done before. When we attached the star into A2, the spiked circle, we've done the same. We pin the marks and the seams of the star on top of each other. We machine baste it, and then we go back and ease in the rest and we stitch it. And as you can see, you always put your pins this way, and the reason is, now I can check my points if they match. And that is an essential part, because we don't want to have points like that. So we can check it before we stitch it. If I finish my entire circle, I will baste it. I will use a regular stitch, a 2, 2.5, it all depends on your machine, and I will baste them. I will baste all my marks. And if I've done that, the only thing I have to do, put my fingers behind the piece and ease this in. So I'm absolutely sure that everything will be on the right spot, won't be shift anymore, and I can have that perfect circle that I need. And I will press my seams in the direction of the striped circle, and the reason is, you have much more seams on this side, so the most natural way is to press the fabric into the striped circle. Your circle will be much more flat than push it the way back into the spikes. But I will show you the next step. At this moment I have finished the pinning. What I've done so far, we have made the star, we have made A2, we have pinned A3, and as you can see, the smallest part of A3 is in the widest part of A2. So I have machine based all my marks, and now it is time to stitch it. I have pinned the spaces in between, I divide it, and although it looks a little bit bulky here, don't worry, it will be fine. I use a regular stitch, a 2, 2.5, it all depends on your machine, but this again is in fact the same what we have done with the star and A2. Machine based, ease the rest in and stitch it, and you press the fabric in the direction of the spiked circle or the striped circle. So, and then the first piece is ready, and I think this will be a big help for all your other parts in Dream Flight. Our next step, I have stitched the circles together and I checked the seams. Are they okay? Didn't they flip to the other side? And remember that little tip that I gave you, that little piece of Scotch tape that you put over this edge, it really is a big help, because if not, all your seams will do this. So, always use the little tips that I share. My next step, I will finger press the seam into the striped circle. Again, that is the most natural way, and when I do this, I can check the spikes, how they look like. Didn't I cut off the points? Are they nice and crisp? So, if I've done that, then I will press him, and again, I will put a little piece of paper. It could be everything. A piece of paper, toilet paper, kitchen towel, even a piece of fabric, that will be fine, just to protect the center of your star. If you've done that, we are finished with this part, and we can go to part G, the little star G15, G16, the beautiful green circle, and that beautiful coral circle G17. So that will be a new challenge, but again, if you know how that works, you can make so many other parts in the quilts. Okay, what I did, again, I use a little bit of steam to make her nice and crisp, and as you also can see, I put a little piece of paper over the top of my star so I won't damage her by accident. When I press very gentle. Maybe it doesn't look like, but the iron hardly touched the fabric. So, and if you can see this, our first part is ready. So now I will make her nice and beautiful. Oops, there's my paper. So, we are ready with the first part of our quilt. So what do you think so far? I think we have done a wonderful piece without any problems. These are a lot of techniques that I want to show you. And I think the way we make our stars, the way we make our spikes, how we assemble the pieces together, it all will help you to make this challenging quilt. And building up your skills, building up your techniques and your knowledge, and maybe your confidence. So I hope that I can be part of that too. So please stay with us and make this beautiful, eye-catching quilt.